Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine was released for the Sega Genesis in 1993. It's a falling block puzzle game, very much in the same vein as Tetris, where the goal is to make lines, or in this case beans, disappear. But it actually was originally released in Japan 2 years earlier as Puyo Puyo. When Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was delayed and ultimately split into 2 games, Sonic Spinball was released as a means of feeding the Sonic craze in the meantime. Only 3 days later, Mean Bean Machine was also released. So all of this was done to buy Sega some time for Sonic 3. Let's just take this game that's already made and slap a few Sonic characters where needed. It makes sense too. I mean, Nintendo struck gold with Dr. Mario, capitalizing on the Tetris phenomenon combined with their mascot. So while Sega was needing to pump out some extra Sonic games, this was a good time to put this practice to the test. So the plot is that Dr. Robotnik has kidnapped the beans from Beanville and has been turning them into robot slaves using his bean machine. And by completing these bean matching games, you've stopped his evil plans? I don't know. I guess it's kind of difficult to take this bean puzzle game and come up with a story that makes sense in the context of Sonic the Hedgehog, but who's really paying attention to this shit anyway? Unlike Tetris or Dr. Mario, you're paired off with the CPU opponent in the single-player mode, with each stage being represented by a different Sonic character. Although it actually is similar to multiplayer Tetris, where the first one to reach the top of their grid loses. You can also play against a human opponent, or practice your skills in the practice mode. Similar to Dr. Mario, every piece that drops is a 2-color item, in this case 2 beans lined up side by side, which you can rotate, with the goal of getting 4 of them strung together. And when you're able to get combos, you'll send a wave of empty beans into your opponent's grid, which blocks them from getting any bean chains going underneath it. To get this shit out of the way, you'll need to clear some beans adjacent to these clear beans. The game keeps track of points and time, but there's no time limit, and you can't win on points. The game goes on indefinitely until someone overflows. So while it's all well and good to keep your pile low, you don't want to get too conservative and hit up every 4-bean combination you get a chance to. It's sometimes best to leave room so you can strike some combos and send the clear beans over to the other side. If you dick around for too long, then at some point your opponent is going to send a shitload of clear beans your way and wreak havoc on your grid. And the CPU is no joke. After a few stages, it really starts to get difficult. Speaking of the CPU, I'd like to talk about the character choices here. They're all baddies from the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog animated series, most notably Scratch, Grounder, and Coconuts, plus Dr. Robotnik as the final opponent. But there's a whole slew of forgettable characters that may or may not have even been from the show to begin with. But despite this being a spin-off in the Sonic series, Sonic himself doesn't appear in the game at all, not even a cameo. In fact, he's not even implied to be the main character that you're playing as. It's all very vague as to what is happening or who you even are, and as you can probably guess, there's no sign of Tails either. That being said, it probably would have been very tacky and contrived if Sega tried to throw together some kind of Sonic-esque platformer bonus level or some shit. It just would have thrown off the flow of the game, so I'm more than okay with the way they decided to format this. Not to mention that this wasn't advertised as a Sonic game. Like if it were called Sonic the Hedgehog vs. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine or something, then I would be pissed at the flagrant false advertising. But it doesn't do that. It's always been presented as a side project, even more so than Sonic Spinball was. So while the game isn't going to win any points for originality, and it can get frustrating in the single-player mode, it's still an under-the-radar, addictive little game, especially in multiplayer mode. And that wraps up this edition of Aqualung's Game Reviews. See you next time.